Once more, welcome to the entire class of SE Electronics and Computer Science Semester 3 for the subject Electronic Devices abbreviated ED with the subject code ECC 302. We continue our journey further with module number 5 titled Rectifiers and Filters. As per the syllabus, in the previous lectures, we have already covered the capacitor filter as well as the inductor filter from unit number 5.2. Today, we continue further with the inductor capacitor, also called as the LC filter. For today's video lecture session, we'll be covering module number 5, unit number 5.2, titled the inductor and capacitor filter. Before we can continue further, apart from having a good knowledge about the capacitor filter, you should also have a good understanding about the inductor or the L filter, which was covered in lecture number 8, unit number 5.2 in the previous case. The YouTube link as well as the QR code are given here. Starting off, the syllabus contains four main filter circuits: the capacitor filter, the inductor filter, both of which were covered earlier. Today we are starting with the inductor capacitor, also called as the LC filter. The fourth one is the capacitor inductor capacitor CLC, also called as the pi filter. For all the four filter circuits, we will be focusing upon the circuit diagram, the principle of operation, its working, and expressions for the average or the DC output voltage, the average or the DC output current, along with the ripple factor gamma. The inductor and capacitor or the LC filter looks like this, in which you have two filter elements. One is the inductor L and one is the capacitor C. If you just look at the circuit diagram, the remaining portion of the circuit remains exactly the same, in which you have the load RL, the full wave bridge type rectifier circuit, the step down transformer, and the AC input power supply of 230 volts AC 50 Hertz. So once we start sketching it, we always go from right to left. Our first diagram would be that of the AC input power supply, which is 230 volts AC 50 Hertz single phase. It is connected to the primary windings of the step down transformer having a turns ratio N1 is to N2. Of course, N1 will be more than N2, meaning the primary windings, the turn of the primary windings are much more than the turn of the secondary windings. Now, for this particular step down transformer, the secondary windings are connected to certain points of the full wave bridge type rectifier circuit that has diodes D1, D2, D3, and D4. Since we are all aware of its operation, two of the diodes turn on and they conduct the current in one of the half cycles, while other two diodes which were previously off now turn on and they conduct the remaining current for the other half cycle. Here we have the inductor L connected in series with the load, and we have the capacitor C which is connected in exactly parallel with the load. One very common mistake which students make is they draw the capacitor in the beginning. So please note that the capacitor is only after the load RL. So you have the inductor L and the capacitor C. So the name is appropriately put as L and C. So this particular shortcut may actually give you some, sort of memory based remembrance that you have the inductor L first and then you have the capacitor C. What follows later is the load RL. IL or the value IDC is nothing but the load or the average DC value of the output current through the load RL. VL is equal to VDC is simply the load voltage developed across the output or the average value of the DC output voltage. Needless to say, if you see the circuit diagram, the filtering action of the LC filter is supposed to be far better as compared to the individual filter circuits of the capacitor or the C filter and the inductor or the L filter. Just revising the basic properties of the inductor as well as the capacitor, you have the inductor coil as shown with multiple windings or with multiple turns. VL of T is simply the voltage across the inductor, while IL of T is nothing but the current that is passing through the inductor. Just from the point of view of notations, both are functions with respect to time. The equation that describes relationship of VL of t and IL of t is given by the voltage is equal to minus L dIL by dt, and the negative sign is due to the phenomena of Lenz's law, because this will oppose the very cause producing it. Here, if the current through the inductor remains constant, there is no voltage drop across it because derivative of a constant will be zero. However, if the current through the inductor will change continuously with time, then you have a certain factor of dIL of t by dt. So the voltage will be there. This equation shows that inductors will pass DC easily, but they will block AC because the voltage drop across them will be very, very high. The same equation in terms of current can be simply obtained by modifying the terms. So we get IL of t is equal to minus 1 upon L integral 0 to t VL of t dt. So these two equations are nothing but the current voltage equations for the inductor L. We also observed that how we had the graph of the inductive reactance XL varying as a function of the applied signal frequency F. Here XL is equal to j omega L. So taking modulus of this, we get mod XL is equal to 2 pi FL. Since we are plotting a graph of XL versus F, the inductance L will be constant and 2 pi is itself a constant. So the graph will be as a typical straight line. Reason being that since 2 pi and L are both constant terms, this is simply XL directly proportional to F. So you have the equation of a straight line passing through the origin. Similarly, for a capacitor, Vc of t is nothing but the voltage across the capacitor, while Ic of t is nothing but the current that is passing through it. This capacitor is simply taken to be that of two parallel plates with a suitable dielectric material between them. The equation that governs relationship of Vc of t and Ic of t is given by Ic of t, the current, is equal to C, the capacitance value, dVc of t by dt. Now, this equation shows that the current is directly proportional to the rate of change of the voltage across the capacitor. Because if you remove the terms equal to and C, this becomes Ic of t will be proportional to C dVc by dt. This means that if the voltage across the capacitor is a constant, IC of t will be zero, because the derivative of a constant being zero, capacitors do not pass DC, but they easily pass AC. So this equation proves the fact that the current can only flow across the capacitor only when you have a continuous rate of change of voltage across it. The same equation can be transformed to give the voltage as Vc of t is equal to 1 upon C integral 0 to t Ic of t to the value dt. Just as we did for inductors, similarly for capacitors, the capacitive reactance can be expressed by Xc is equal to 1 upon j omega c, the basic definition. If we take modulus, we have mod Xc is equal to 1 upon 2 pi Fc. Since we are plotting a graph of the variation of the capacitive reactance with the change in the applied signal frequency F, 2 pi is a constant, C is definitely a constant, so we have Xc will be inversely proportional to 1 upon F. So the curve would be somewhat like this. As we have seen earlier, it's a typical hyperbolic curve. Reason being that when f tends towards 0, xc will tend towards infinity. So the curve directly comes from top. It will never touch the vertical axis. And as f tends to go towards infinity, xc will tend to go towards 0. So it's not possible to show the curve touching on the particular horizontal axis as well. Now, when you have the inductor and the capacitor both working in the same circuit together, let us take a look at how the characteristics will now behave. So here, what we are doing is we are plotting a graph of both the inductive reactance as well as the capacitive reactance, because we are finally dealing with the inductor and capacitor or a typical LC filter. Since we have already seen earlier, the graph of the capacitive reactance is given by mod Xc is equal to 1 upon 2 pi Fc, and you have the graph of the inductive reactance XL or mod XL given by 2 pi FL, What is worthwhile to notice here is that these two curves definitely intersect at a certain point here. So the point at which these two curves intersect give us information on two main things. The first is they intersect at a certain frequency called as f naught. And the second part is at this particular point for a frequency f naught, the inductive reactance is exactly equal to the capacitive reactance, although both may not be minimum. When I say minimum, for capacitive reactance, the minimum value will be slightly over here towards the right hand side. But for the inductive reactance, the value will be over here when I say minimum. But yes, at this point, both inductances are exactly equal and the frequency will be f naught. This particular phenomena is what we call as resonance. So resonance takes place at f is equal to f naught, where we have xl is exactly equal to fc, and the frequency f naught can be easily derived by just putting in the values of xl as 2 pi fl, xc is equal to 1 upon 2 pi fc, and we get the formula f naught is equal to 1 upon 2 pi square root of LC. This is the particular resonant frequency where the both inductive and capacitive reactances are exactly same. We'll just see in the later parts why is this particular phenomena very, very important. Looking at the inductor and the capacitor filter, we are following the same particular notation. The complicated stuff of the AC input source, rectifier circuit, as well as the transformer have been simply put into this particular black box. So this has been shown as a typical two-port network. The output voltage is what we get as a pulsating DC voltage. And this was again taken a long time back when we studied both the particular rectifier circuits. So rectified output voltage V out contains a DC component and it contains an AC component as well. So it is technically pulsating DC having a peak value of plus Vm and a minimum value of 0. The voltage goes down to 0 at intervals of origin, pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, etc. So although the voltage is definitely positive, it is still not stable, it is still not constant, it is continuously fluctuating, and the ripple content is very, very high. And as we already know, ripple content for both rectifiers was approximately 48.34%. That is again very high. The job of the filter circuits was to simply minimize this particular ripple component. So what we have is we have the inductor L in series and we have the capacitor C in parallel. IL is nothing but once again the DC or the average load current that flows through the load RL, while VL is nothing but the DC or the average load voltage which is obtained across the load RL. The fully rectified DC output pulsating voltage is made available across V out. Here, the inductor firstly will block any AC component, but it will allow the DC component to easily pass through. So when the DC component passes through, the capacitor will then start filtering out any leftover AC component which is present at the output over here. So while the inductor takes care of the AC component, capacitor C simply allows the DC component to reach the load RL. Reason being that if there is any AC component that is able to squeeze through the inductor, the capacitor will easily bypass it down to ground since the connection is in parallel or it is in shunt. So the inductor and the capacitor filter, both of them have a dual filtering action in which pulsations or the ripple that take place in the current are minimized or are decreased by the inductor L, whereas the pulsations or the ripples which take place in the voltage are minimized or decreased to a great extent by using the capacitor C. Now, finding out what is the importance of this particular condition of now resonance at a certain frequency f naught, this becomes clear from this particular diagram here. For just a small time, assume that the load RL is extremely high. So when load RL is extremely high, the parallel combination of the capacitive reactance XC with RL will be approximately equal to XC. So although the particular parallel impedance will be XC parallel RL, if RL is made extremely high, the total combined parallel impedance will be simply approximately equal to Xc. Now, if the ripple frequency indeed achieves a resonance condition where the ripple frequency becomes equal to f naught, where f naught is equal to 1 upon 2 pi root Lc, both the inductance and the capacitance will have exactly same reactances. We'll have XL will be exactly equal to XC. Under these conditions where XL and XC both are same, the output voltage, which is nothing but rectified output voltage, will divide itself equally across the inductor and across the capacitor, because both XL and XC are exactly same. So we get the output voltage across the capacitor as exactly half or 50% of the rectified output voltage. And this is definitely a loss. You are only getting 50% or only half the rectified output voltage. You definitely don't want that to happen. You want a much higher output voltage, as high as possible, across the capacitor C. So we should take care in mind that when we design the components of L and C, we should always take care that resonance condition is never achieved, because otherwise the only adverse reaction will be that the output or the load voltage will only be half of the rectified output pulsating DC voltage. That is what we have to keep in mind. If you see the operation, the inductor L is connected in series with the load, while the capacitor C is connected in shunt, that is parallel. The inductor L offers a very high reactance, also called as opposition, to the AC component, which easily allows the DC component to reach the load RL. The capacitor bypasses the AC component, which could have been present along with the DC component, pass through the inductor, and it will bypass this AC component down to ground, because the capacitor offers a very low reactance to AC, and this allows the DC component across it to reach the load RL. So the continuous supply of DC current IDC through the load is maintained by the inductor L, as we have seen already earlier, while a continuous supply of an almost constant or an almost stable DC voltage VDC across the load RL is maintained by the capacitor C. Thus, ripples in both the DC current and the DC voltage, that is ripples in VDC as well as now IDC, are greatly minimized thanks to the combined filtering actions of the inductor and the capacitor. One thing which we have to keep in mind once we actually implement the circuit of a typical LC filter is that we need to be aware of a concept which we call as critical inductance. Now, looking at the circuit, looking at L and then looking at C, the capacitor circuit, as we have seen earlier, the current through it will be in the form of spikes, because whenever the capacitor charges, it will draw a very heavy current through the PN junction diodes. Reason is that the PN junction diodes have an almost zero or a very low forward bias resistance, hence due to which the capacitor C will now charge quickly. To prevent these current spikes, inductor filters were used, because inductors have the property of not allowing the current across it to change rapidly. Capacitors do not allow a rapid change of voltage across it. Conversely, inductors do not allow a rapid change of current through it. However, when we are using this particular inductor, we have to take care that this particular inductance value should be at some certain critical point so as to allow the current through the circuit to flow smoothly, because these are both exactly opposite terms. One has an inductive reactance and one has a capacitive reactance. So the current through the capacitor is in the form of transient pulses or spikes, since it rapidly will charge to the peak voltage value Vm. The inductor L will oppose, on the other hand, the sudden change in current, so the spikes are minimized to a great extent for the capacitor current. However, if the inductance chosen is too low, then it will not oppose the sudden change in the current, and this will allow the capacitor C to again quickly charge to the voltage Vm. Once capacitor C becomes fully charged, the current through the inductor decreases and hence it becomes discontinuous. Reason being that the capacitor is exactly connected in parallel or in shunt with respect to rectifier output terminals. So when both rectifier voltage and capacitor both have their potentials at plus Vm, the current through the inductor, which is in series, will definitely go down to zero or it will become less because currents cannot flow across points which are almost at the same potential. So when this current becomes here discontinuous, as the equation indicates, the voltage across it, the inductor will rise because the voltage was minus L di by dt. And as the current decreases, there is a change. So we have a large factor of dIL by dt, and this will generate a large reverse voltage across the inductor L, which is what we call as back EMF. This reverse voltage may also damage the load apart from causing sparkings. So to prevent this, we need to have a minimum required critical inductance value to be maintained so that the current through the circuit is continuous, and the condition to achieve is simple, that the average or the DC current should be always kept more than or equal to the peak value of the AC current. DC current is nothing but the current which is supplied by the inductor, as well as the AC current is nothing but the peak current which is through the capacitor. So when we are talking about critical inductance, it is the minimum inductance value in a typical LC filter to keep the average or the DC value of the output current continuous, such that the condition to be satisfied is IDC should be more than or at least equal to IAC peak. Looking at the mathematical expressions, the condition was that the DC or the average current value should be more than the AC or the peak current value. So we get IDC can be simply replaced by VDC upon RL thanks to Ohm's law. This should be greater than VAC peak upon XL. Again, we are applying Ohm's law over here. And since this current is nothing but the peak current, which is also passing through the inductor, because the inductor circuit is in series, IAC peak will be nothing but the VAC peak or the peak AC voltage divided by the inductance of the inductor itself. So this gives us VDC can be easily put down in terms of Vm. So VDC, as we had already seen, is given by twice Vm upon pi. RL, of course, stays the same. This should be more than or equal to the peak AC voltage is given by 4 into Vm upon 3 pi. Now XL, although we know it is omega L, here it becomes twice omega L, reason being that ripple frequency of the rectified output voltage is double or is twice of the main source frequency. Hence the frequency here is given as twice omega L. Sorting of the terms, we get twice Vm upon pi into RL will be more than or equal to 4 times Vm upon 6 pi omega L. Cancelling of the common terms, we have Vm and Vm disappears, we have pi and pi disappears. So we get omega L. Transferring this term from right to left, we have omega into L more than or equal to RL by 3. So finally, if we transfer omega from left to right, we have the inductance L should be more than or equal to RL upon 3 times omega. Where as we know, omega is simply given by 2 pi f, and f is nothing but the frequency of the original AC input source, which is given as 50 hertz. So this is nothing but the condition for the critical inductance calculation. So whenever we pick up any inductance, we should also take care what is the load, and depending upon the load, we are easily able to calculate the particular critical inductance. But if this inductance is not satisfied, the current will be highly discontinuous. The filtering action may not take place properly, and further, you also have a chance of getting the load damaged due to a large negative or a reverse voltage called as back EMF developed across the inductor L. The expressions for the DC or the average output current IDC are exactly the same as that of the inductor or the L-type filter. We have IDC is equal to twice Im upon pi, where Im or the maximum or the peak current across the secondary windings is given by Vm divided by square root of the whole term RL plus Rx plus 2Rf the whole term square plus 4 omega square L square, where all these terms RL, Rx and Rf have their typical usual meanings as given. The voltage is given by VDC is equal to twice Vm by pi minus IDC, brackets open, Rx plus 2Rf plus Rx. Once again, Rx is nothing but the internal resistance of the transformer secondary winding given in ohms. Rf is nothing but the internal resistance or in the forward bias condition of the PN junction diodes. The term 2 comes due to the fact that you have two diodes working in tandem in series during each half cycle, and RS is nothing but the internal or the DC resistance of the coil or of the inductor itself. The expression for the ripple factor for the LC filter is given by gamma is equal to 1 upon 6 root 2 omega square into L into C. Now, if you observe this equation carefully, there is no mention of the load resistance RL anywhere. This is possibly the biggest advantage of the LC filter because the ripple factor is completely independent of the load. The load does not dictate whether it should be high or low to achieve a good filtering action. The ripple factor is dependent purely upon the filter components, that is L and C. Since we are having two reactive components L and C, the power of the frequency omega becomes omega square. This is called as a second order system because you have a square term over here, and 6 root 2 is typically a constant term. Now this L should be chosen as at least equal to or slightly more than the critical inductance value as we have just seen earlier. The expressions for the peak ripple component or the peak ripple current are given by IR peak is equal to VDC upon 3 omega L. And since the current variation is almost sinusoidal, the RMS value can be simply obtained by the peak value upon root 2. So this gives us VDC divided by 3 root 2 into omega into L. Similarly, once again, apologies for this part. This should have been a voltage VR. The peak ripple voltage is given by VDC divided by 6 omega square LC, whereas the RMS value is again the peak value divided by root 2. So this gives us VDC divided by 6 root 2 omega square into L into the value C. The features or the characteristics for a typical LC filter are as shown. It minimizes ripples in the output load current due to the inductor L connected in series with the load RL. It also minimizes ripples in the output load voltage due to the capacitor connected in shunt across the load resistor RL. Ripple factor is completely independent of the load as it is evident from the ripple factor expression. We just saw it some time back. However, the critical inductance has to be considered in the design, and it will use two components, inductor as well as capacitor. So from the hardware point of view, the complexity slightly increases. And since we already know this, inductors are large, pretty, bulky, expensive. They also have an internal DC resistance, which will cause heating issues. So although the filtering action is good, it is superior compared to standalone L and C filters. The overall design, the overall consideration for taking into account the critical inductance has to be also done. The analysis are the steps are the same. You always assume that your 230 volts AC main supply 50 hertz is used as we have a V1 RMS. You calculate the secondary RMS voltage by using the standard transformer equation where V1 upon V2 is equal to N1 upon N2 and the transformer turns ratio is given. Once you get V2 RMS, you then calculate the secondary peak or the maximum voltage given as Vm is equal to root 2 into V2 RMS. You are simply multiplying the above term by the value root 2. You then calculate the average or the DC value of the output current with the equations of IDC and IM. And once you get the value IDC, You then later on calculate the average or the DC value of the output voltage given as shown. Ripple factor calculation is completely independent of the above steps. If you have the values of L and C, it is very easy to compute ripple factor gamma. And if you are asked, you can also determine the extent of the ripple components for the peak ripple current, the RMS ripple current, the peak ripple voltage, or the RMS ripple voltage based on these particular previous values. Here, we just end this particular lecture session by taking this numerical example. It is showing the same full wave bridge type rectifier circuit, which is using a step down transformer connected to 230 volts AC 50 Hertz. The problem states to calculate the average or the DC value of the output or the load voltage VL or the value VDC, the average or the DC value of the output or the load current IL or the value IDC, and finally ripple factor gamma. Now about the transformer and about the diodes, three things are given. Resistance of the transformer secondary windings is assumed to be 0. So we have Rx is equal to 0. Resistances of the diodes are given as 50 ohms each, whereas the internal series resistance of the coil is given as a mere 2 ohms. So we only have to consider RF and RS because Rx is assumed to be 0, negligible. Now the solution for this particular problem has been left as a homework. So for all those of you who are now seeing the video, you can just leave out your solutions in the entire comment section. With this, we come to an end of today's session, in which we discuss the inductor capacitor or the LC filter. The list of textbooks, reference books, as well as the online materials remain the same. That will be all. Thank you very much.